Welcome to Waiting on the Trade, a comics book club for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm Matt Ledger.
I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck.
And I'm Catherine Prince.
This month we're talking about Nextwave, Agents of Hate, a 12-issue series by Stuart Immonen, Wade von Grawbadger, and several other people, including, yes, unfortunately, Warren Ellis. Now, in case you need a refresher, Nextwave is the story of 5 B-list Marvel superheroes facing off against a variety of sci-fi and mystical madness. There's punching, snark, explosions, and so many shitty men. As the series reaches its conclusions, our heroes finally dismantle the Evil Beyond Corporation. Or have they? Catherine has typed butts into the Google document, and I think that's actually how I feel about it currently. Cat, welcome back to the podcast. Oh, I got her right when she started coughing with the bronchitis.
Thank you. Oh, can we not just announce that to your podcast? That'd be great.
Yeah, HIPAA violation within the first 3 minutes? Come on.
I did not give
her doctor. I was actually going to say that Kat and I are both coming off of a bout of coughing and sickness, so the discussion and audio may not be up to its usual quality, and it's everyone's fault except Pat's.
No, man, don't admit it. Just people will be like, "Oh, there's something wrong with my audio." They sound like gross.
They sound gross, and their ideas are incoherent. What's wrong with my iPhone?
My headphone jack isn't quite right.
Anyways, Kat, I was saying, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
You finally got to pick and read a non-saga book again, which was not forced upon you. How does it feel to have freedom of choice?
It's been a few years since this has happened. I'm not really sure.
Should
we just talk about saga anyway?
We can. Sure. I honestly might prefer it.
Hey, I picked this book.
No, we're going to have a good discussion about this book, actually. I think, like I said in our text message chain before we started, the 3 questions we submitted really fit together neatly in my head, and I think they'll take us to a lot of interesting places, so I think it'll be a good one, actually. So the questions do fit together neatly in my head, and I think that we should just get in there and start tackling them then. And I think it makes sense for us to start with your question first, Kat, because I think it's going to be the majority of the discussion. And I think it also influences my answer to Pat's question.
It's been a while since I've discussed anything that is not saga with y'all. Don't you start with a brief overview of what this is?
No, not really. I mean, we did it. Now, in case you refresh me, Pat's highlighting it in the Google document right now. I mean,
okay. No, I'll do it. We don't need a script. I shall read from the back. We
literally have a script, and we're at the part where it's discussion questions. We're following.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Wait, did you say that other? That's right. I wrote butts right there. I wasn't listening because I was waiting for you to get to butts. Okay. I apologize. So yeah, you're right. We are at the part in your script where it says discussion questions.
We've done it.
I'm just taking a screenshot of the current state of the script so I can put it in the show notes. God.
Well, because I had a little bit of a lead up to it in terms of what I was thinking about when I framed this question, which is essentially at its heart a cancel culture question.
Well, I mean, I guess to be fair, we could introduce it like we've done so many in the past. Kat, how did you get introduced to Nextwave originally?
I was going to try to say that about 3 times before I got rolled over by, you didn't introduce
But then you didn't say it, so...
That's true. Yeah, got.
Well, the quick answer to that is I don't know how this happened. It came out originally in 2005, 6, 7?
7, yeah.
7?
Yeah.
So probably a few years following that, I don't know, 2009, 2010. I would imagine through Matt because...
as all things flow, yes.
Well, this isn't one that I would just be superheroes and pick up. Just from the outside, it looks like one of the types of comics I'm not that interested in.
Yeah, sure. it's a superheroes in the Marvel universe. It's not for you, probably, you would think, except maybe it is.
Honestly, rereading this, I think I missed majority of the parody in this, which is ridiculous because it's all parody.
No, there's so much parody.
Parody of what? Because I haven't read any of the source material. I've seen some
Yeah,
movies.
so like there's parody of like kind of this moment in superhero comics, which is like widescreen action and like heroes getting like grittier and like revamped origins and stuff. And like that's part of what's going on with the new Paramounts at the end is like they're a take on the Ultimates, which was like a different continuity version of the Avengers that kind of influenced the movies. But in the same way that like kind of all of the heroes in this book are at least slightly shitty, like all of the heroes in the Ultimates are like at least slightly shitty. So
And I guess this is the same era in which The Boys was originally being published too, which is, I guess, the grittier take on what if superheroes were real. They would be just as shitty as real people who
yeah,
are
we're
real.
starting to like deal with the deconstruction of the superhero as a moral person a
Which
lot
I
in this
do
era.
like. That is a thing that I
I
like.
mean, I know you know that I don't,
Uh,
so
yeah.
but yeah, so one more thing on the parody before we move on. Like there's straight up a moment in the Ultimates where Ultimate Captain America, who is a big ol' American dickhead, like kicks over, oh my God, he kicks over like a Muslim guy who's on this opposing like
Ooh,
super team and is just like, "Do you think this A on my head stands for
stands for
France?"
France.
And
Yeah.
that's what Elsa Bloodstone's parodying when she like it goes victim, victim. Do you think this letter on my chest stands for America? Like it's straight up
Uh,
a parody of that moment. And it's that one,
pre-Brexit t-shirt.
right? Yeah, that one is still funny to me
I
actually,
was
but
kind of wondering, what is she doing wandering around in this t-shirt? Like, that's not her.
it's all set up for that joke.
Uh,
Which, if you know what it's referencing, is a good joke, and if you don't know what it's referencing, I think it's still an okay
yeah,
joke.
it's still an okay joke.
Yeah,
I don't know any of the parodies really.
yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about whether this book is held up or not. The Ultimates is not a book that is held up, which that's a different
A
discussion, though.
different discussion for someone who is not me.
Yes. Anyways, I would imagine you were introduced to this book through me. I can't remember whether this is one that Cal recommended to me or I had just found, honestly, but like this is part of, I think, my expansion out of just mainstream superhero stuff to like slightly like more obscure or irreverent or like not just straightforward stuff. So that's probably how we found it
Well, the
as a
reason
unit.
I picked it is because of late I've been doing some, well, a fair few how has it aged explorations of things that I remember liking that came out in about, like the late noughties. So like for this one, 2007. And some of them have held up and some of them have not, um, which we can discuss later, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll get into it for sure. But
But okay, so long story short, this is written by Warren Ellis, who in recent years it has come to light that he has been guilty of things like sexual coercion, grooming, and emotional abuse of about 100 women. The women even have their own website, so manyofus.com, which is honestly surprising for a guy that looks like a potato in a hat. So I guess that's something. Yeah, so my question was about, because I've been thinking about cancel culture as it relates to comics. This is something Matt's been doing a little bit too, where he did not want to reread Nextwave because he did not want to read a Warren Ellis book. But I remember liking it, so I was like, no, we're doing it. So yeah, cancel culture as it relates to comics, it's kind of more of a exploration of where to draw the line. So, as consumers of media, we can use our power to not consume to send a message. But this isn't just Warren Ellis's book. Like Stuart Immonen, the artist, does not appear to have a group of women he has victimized to the point that they've started their own website. He's probably an upstanding guy. And then what about the colorist? What about the letterer, the editor, the associate managing editor? So, when we leverage our power as consumers, is it different for past works from a bad seed versus ongoing future works? Basically, like, comics are really collaborative. So, what do you think cancel culture's implications are in this particular medium? especially for something that's come out such a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I can go first as I as I very often do. But I guess so like the Warren Ellis stuff came out basically during that pandemic summer where like so many people were kind of like outed as being creeps in the same summer because everyone was just on social media like saying, "Hey, no, this person's a creep." Um, and like there were several comics people during that same summer. I don't know if like Cameron Stewart was that summer or earlier. Like Jason Latour was that summer for sure because that's when I got rid of my copies of Southern Bastards. Like, and I was buying at the time actually the single issues of The Batman's Grave, which is another Warren Ellis book that he actually did with Ultimates artist Brian Hitch, which is kind of funny. So, like, I just stopped buying that because I was like, I don't want to put money in this guy's pocket. But like at the same time, I own so many I own a lot of Warren Ellis books at the time. Oh, maybe I don't actually own that many, but like I still have Planetary on the shelf. That's a Warren Ellis series. I really like that series, and like in the way that this book is really kind of like not super optimistic. Like everyone's kind of snarky and mean. Like everyone's always snarky in Warren Ellis comics. It's just kind of his thing. But like that's a book that has a lot to say about how storytelling and pop culture tropes and everything have changed over time, and is also like a very optimistic book at the end, and like it's good. So like I have that one still, and I'm not sure I should. Like I've considered getting rid of it a few times, and I don't know what to do about it. So, and it's a weird one because like you were talking, Kat, about the collaborative nature of comics. That book has, I think, both John Cassaday and Laura Martin on art and colors. And that same team is on Astonishing X-Men with Joss Whedon, which is another series that I'm like, oh god, do I have to get rid of this one? Because Joss Whedon was also revealed to be a creep, I think, during the Summer of Creeps, if not before or after. Like,
Oh
there's
my God. If you get rid of all the Joss Whedon stuff, that's like half of modern pop culture.
it's a lot, right? And like
Yeah.
there is something to be said for like some of that stuff. Like a lot of other people worked on that stuff too, right? Like Joss Whedon wrote like 4 episodes of Buffy per season or something, right? He didn't write all of them. Like that's not how TV works. So like are you throwing out all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Are you
Okay,
throwing out just the Joss ones? Like
there's a difference. Like when you're talking about people and acknowledging some of these misbehaviors is one thing. Not choosing to purchase new things is another thing. And then deciding whether or not to keep some stuff that you already have, that's probably more of a personal decision. And it doesn't really affect the creators that much if you're like, well, I'll just give this to Goodwill. Or I guess if you really don't want anyone to be able to read it because you don't like them, then I guess you will throw it away or burn it or something.
yeah, I
Seems a
mean,
little dramatic.
no, I think I agree. No, I did actually. I don't know if you remember this, Cat. I threw away that print that I bought at
Yes, I remember.
the Magic Fest in Vegas that we went to because it was by an artist who was also revealed to be like a sexual coercion creep for Magic, and I was like, I like that one was a personal choice because I had it over my desk and it's like I can't look at this without thinking about this creep. I got to get rid of this thing, so it's gone. Like that's the thing. Like, and I think with a comic, it is different because, like, I look at Planetary on my shelf and I'm like, a lot of what I think about is like the John Cassaday art. Like, it's very good. I look at Astonishing on my shelf and, like, again, the art, but also those characters are much like Cyclops is larger than Joss Whedon in my brain, if that makes sense. So, like, that plays into it a little bit.
Well, here's the thing about Nextwave. Like, yes, people are kind of snarky and mean to each other, and there's some like kind of rapey moments in there too. Like
Yeah.
Oh,
women are
absolutely,
objectified
there
a lot.
are.
That guy that's like, "Oh, maybe I'll get 10 minutes alone with Ava Brown." Like, oof. Okay. So, I mean, it definitely has that horn dog frat boy brand of humor that was so popular, at least in movies at the time. But, given all that stop staring at my chest and you're too old for me one-liners, I don't find it surprising that Next Wave was written by a guy with a certain disregard for women. So like if you read it knowing that going in, it's not exactly a shocker.
No, but I think it does actually make the act of reading Next Wave worse because every time I read about a dude doing shitty stuff in Next Wave, I'm just like, oh yeah, the guy who wrote this is a shitty dude. Like, so it's like a little ping in the back of my mind every time that like Dirk Anger talks about how he had to like kill his wife because she stopped being interesting to him or whatever, right? I'm like, oh, that's
He's a
not good.
psychopath, though. That fits with his character.
I mean, but like, so everything that a writer writes comes from somewhere, right? Like, it doesn't have to be an exact thing that they feel or did, but like, it's a thing that's in their brain somewhere. And it's like, okay, so how much of that is like a transpolation? I don't even know if that's the right word or is a word.
Transpolation? You just
Yeah.
made that up.
Transpolation.
All right, now I'm looking it up. Anyways,
Transpolation.
Pat hasn't talked yet, so I want Pat to get into his feelings on it. Also, will I look up whether transpolation's a word? It's not.
Yeah.
I don't think so. There's that.
There's someone on prosy.com that says transpolation in English is a new coinage with a very specific mathematical meaning.
That's probably not what I was trying to say. So I'm gonna blame the sick brain on that one. But Pat,
Okay,
you haven't
all
talked
right.
yet. Walk me through your opinion on these
I'd
questions.
really,
I think it's a lot of questions, honestly.
I've had to struggle with this for a while because while Nextwave I've enjoyed in the past, it certainly hasn't been one of my favorites. But like you guys were saying, Joss Whedon has had his own issues, and like Firefly was one of my favorite pieces of science fiction TV Western stuff. It's awesome. Nathan Fillion is the man, but a lot of the interactions between characters in that not great on second viewing.
Oh, like what? It's been a
Really?
while for me.
I mean, just the whole companion character.
What?
There's a whole scene where I should look up what the character's name is at this point. It's been a while since I've watched it.
Inara?
Anara, yeah. So there's a character who's literally she's a prostitute. She's a sex worker.
She's a sex worker.
Yeah. And it's a legitimate career in that society. But Nathan Fillion's character legit calls her a whore. She tells him not to, and he still does it. And it's never really resolved. It's like there's some ickiness there if you really want to go back and re-watch it.
Yeah, but I mean, he's not in the right? Like, characters
No,
are
but
allowed to
like,
have bad
He's
opinions.
doing it specifically to be nasty, and he knows it.
yeah, it doesn't feel great with what news. I mean, it's not as
No, I mean,
bad.
I do see what you're
but-
saying, though. I think it's the same thing I was talking about with when like stuff against women comes up against in Nextwave too, where it just like it kind of just like pings your brain, and you're like, oh yeah, that's
Right.
no
Can I
good.
just say, I was really impressed with the way prostitution was depicted in Firefly.
Yeah, I think on the
was, like,
whole, yeah.
Idealized world.
I mean, I guess the real issue is when you start looking at like Dollhouse, which the very concept of it to begin with, when I first got into it, was sort of like, whoa, this is treading a fine line.
Yeah,
Of
that's
using attractive people's bodies for it's
Showbiz.
yeah.
the NFL.
The NFL, yeah. I guess it's still very much a part of mainstream culture.
Yeah. But yeah, so that, and then what we've got, what was it? I just had it and I forgot the name of the D&D comic book-esque characters, all female rat queens. There we
yeah.
go.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Rat
yeah.
Queens.
Worked it out. There were some problems with the writer on that. Is that correct?
That's one that I don't remember either, because like we had read 2 volumes of that, and then we found whatever that was out, and we were like, that's fine. Like that one, I was not super invested in, so that made that decision very easy.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I haven't read past volume 2 because things fell apart. And I mean, like, you've got Kevin Spacey doing Kevin Spacey things, and does that taint everything that he's been in the past? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Kat was saying, like the past works especially. I think you're gonna like everyone's gonna have their own line,
Yeah.
and like it might be a weird line. It might be a weird line that comes in like based on again like the astonishing X-Men stuff for me really does get more of a pass because those characters have existed prior to Joss taking them on and will continue to exist far into the future,
Sure.
right? Like they're
Well, so
not
of Nextwave
his.
characters.
I mean, that's actually partially a
True.
thing too. Like I so like Monica, I like in stuff prior to this, which actually makes some of her weird flashbacks grating for me, but we'll talk about that, I think. And I like Monica and stuff after this too. Like so, and Next Wave actually kind of is incorporated as part of her history at this point. Like in the introduction that you didn't listen to, Kat, I said dismantle the Evil Beyond Corporation, or have they? Turns out they didn't. Turns out
Of
the
course
Beyond
not.
Corporation still exists. And like part of Monica's deal now is that she's one of the people who knows that the Beyond Corporation exists, so she deals with it. So like every once in a while other people will be drawn into that like web, and also Monica's off doing other stuff too. So
Well, I
but
think for me, the Warren Ellis issue isn't an issue. Like, isn't really a problem for me to drop or not pick up Warren Ellis comics because other than this, I don't think I mean, is Preacher Warren Ellis?
no,
No.
that's Garth Ennis,
Garth
which is
Ennis.
I
in the
know they all have
cycle.
such similar
Gosh
names.
dang it!
It's in the cycle of three that Kat confuses all the time. Yeah, Grant
Yeah.
Morrison's the other one, by the way, Kat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're great. Graham Morrison's fine.
Yeah, it's just they have such similar names that
Sure.
we have
But
wrong.
like, other than Next Wave, I don't know if I've got any kind of investment in any other Warren Ellis properties. I probably do. The guy is pretty prolific, so. But
Have you watched Castlevania, the Netflix
oh,
series?
I guess that's true. I
Okay.
mean, I did watch it, but it's not as great as everyone says it is. I'll just say that. The
Yeah,
animation's great. The quality of the show is top notch.
what do you
Story's
think
sort
about
of
the stuff
meh.
I watched? I have the same opinion, but neither here nor there.
So the copy that Matt and I read is from the library, and I feel like I don't
Yeah.
care. Like me reading this as a library book is not putting any money, well, into any of the creators' pockets. But like,
hmm
yeah, I guess if you think about it as like making a statement fiscally by not choosing to purchase things from a specific creator, that would be forward, future facing. And then stuff they've already done, I'd say like, yeah, sure, just with a grain of salt. And then if you don't like it, maybe that's why.
Sure.
So I will say, Kat, that first off, like the so there's that I was talking about that the Batman's Grave series that I dropped in the middle of the pandemic because all the Warren Ellis stuff came out, and I was like, I don't need to deal with this. Like, I don't need to finish this story. It's
Sounds
not worth it for me.
extremely melodramatic anyway, just putting
No,
that out
it's
there.
I stopped buying a comic. Woot woot. Yay. I am such a great feminist. Woo. Right. But like I did choose to do the thing. And they had the collection at the library that's like down the street from us. And I was like, well, if I check that out, it does say like I checked that out, someone's interested in this, like potentially they purchase another copy at some point if enough people check it out. Again, doesn't matter. It's like a 0.001 percentage thing or whatever. But like I didn't check it out until we read this one because I was like, well, if I'm doing one, I'll just do the other one while I'm doing it. Also, that series ends up being bad for anyone else who fell off of it for the same reason. Like, don't bother going to go pick it up or get it from your library. It's not great. But yeah, so there is like a small smidgen of like something that we have done by checking it out from the library. It's basically nothing, but it is a thing. And second, like we never will, as far as I'm concerned at least, own a copy of Nextwave again. Like we did own one. I think I sent that copy to Cal, so maybe this wasn't a Cal recommendation now that I think about it. And like just never rebought it. And we never will, because like I just don't like I don't feel the need. And like Stuart Immonen's like one of my favorite artists too, so that kind of sucks for Stuart Immonen that like people are gonna not buy Next Wave going into the future because of this.
Well,
Like I'm sure
one
there
person.
no, I'm sure there are other people though. I'm not saying my choice is the choice everyone will make, but there are people that will make the same choice for the same reason. And like Stuart Immonen's wallet takes a hit because of that. I think actually about the time this stuff came out, there was an artist, Ramon Villalobos, who was slated to work on like the next Warren Ellis series at DC, and DC just was like, no, fuck, we're gonna punt that. And then like Ramon Villalobos like didn't get work for a while after that because like was 4 issues into the can on a project, and then the
Oof.
project got canceled, and then like had to go like trying to get work together, and it was the middle of the pandemic. So like
Yeah.
I think this would be a really interesting thing for an economist to study, like what the far-reaching and more targeted effects of choosing to avoid a specific creator actually does. Like, does it actually matter? I think maybe it's a thing that'll eventually blow over and Warren Ellis will be writing a lot of stuff. Maybe he already is.
I mean, I don't think it's a lot of stuff. Actually, when it was not that far after everything blew up, it was maybe like a year and change or something. I think maybe find this for the show notes. Image announced like a new Warren Ellis series, and they got such backlash like so fast that
Fell?
they're
Is
like,
it the Fell
no.
series?
Maybe it might be. Yeah, I would have to
See,
double check.
that's where the power lies. If they keep trying to do the same thing again, you're like, no, shut it down. What's already out there is out there.
I mean, I don't think there's. Again, I'll have to double check this for the show notes, but like, I don't think there's been a new Warren Ellis series since this happened, but I'm not sure, and I could be wrong. So,
Yeah, I don't really know what the answer is. It's not fair for any of the other collaborators, for sure, to be completely put out of work and for their work not to get the notoriety that it deserves.
so I guess like Kat, kind of turning this back to you, so that you can talk about the question a little bit too. Like, are you more likely to buy someone like? You'll just have to go with my hypothetical here. I know you're probably not likely to do either of these, but walk with me. Yes, and with
Wow.
me, please.
Okay.
Are you more likely to buy someone like a Series 1 Buffy DVD, because that was not just Joss Whedon like wrote a thing, it's like a whole show and ensemble and like a bunch of people worked on it and there's a lot going on there? Or would you be more likely to buy like a Harry Potter Volume 1 and give it to someone because it's that good that it overcomes the fact that J.K. Rowling, the person, is not great? It seems like.
I mean, like, there's probably 500 Harry Potters in every square mile of this city, so.
Well, I asked you to yes and with me. You didn't yes and with me.
I mean,
I guess so. I'm trying to ask you, like, does the fact that Buffy is made by a collaborative unit of people offset the like?
oh, and you think Harry Potter isn't? What
I mean,
about
it's
all the
not, is it?
editors and the art? Every country has different art for
But it's
those.
not in the same way, right? Like,
It's not in the
it's
same
not the
way.
same thing.
I would say, you know what? It's in the past. I love Harry Potter, and I love, well, the first few seasons of Buffy. And I would recommend those to anyone, like, regardless. Like, I really try to know as little as possible about the creators of things, honestly, because I hate it when this stuff happens. So, like, am I going to give money to J.K. Rowling by playing the new Harry Potter game online? No, probably not. Am I going to forswear Harry Potter and not recommend it to anyone? No, I think it was a really great story and continues to be. It just takes a little bit of extra bandwidth now to kind of filter out the parts that are unfortunate about the author.
See, my take on that part of the question actually is that there's no like dearth of good stuff out there. So if you're going to give someone something like that, or like you're going to pick something up, you could give the money to a good person or like a better person, right? Like, and I know that's a hard
These are
take
things that
maybe,
came out
but
in the 90s. Like,
but
I'd be
she's still
giving money
making
to
money on it though. Like if you buy it, J.K. Rowling gets money. Whereas if you
from
give
a
someone,
secondhand bookstore.
I mean, I guess
I'm
not.
not
But
sure
like
that's
that
true.
secondhand bookstore then gets in another copy of Harry Potter from somewhere. Like it came from the chain somewhere, man. And you
Harry
could give some.
Potter is such a massive commercial success that it like that wouldn't matter. I think for stuff like that where it's like cultural touchstones that have been like really meaningful to a lot of people, and honestly my choosing not to buy a copy of a book that was published in 1998 would make zero like fiscal difference to the creator of Harry Potter, or buying a DVD, which people still watch, I guess, like that wouldn't matter to Joss Whedon either. Like that, I think, is not where cancel culture would really have its strengths. It would be like not condoning whatever nonsense J.K. Rowling is saying on Twitter, or just like I don't know how it would relate to Joss Whedon. Maybe like being aware of new things and keeping an eye on that sort of thing. And if I just don't think stuff that's that old and that I really enjoyed at the time and actually has held up, both of those things have passed the held up test. That I'm not going to be like, no, I'm cutting that out of my life because I just don't think that's like it's not helpful to anyone.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think there is something to be said for being able to separate the
That's of
story
the
from the
author.
person too. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
again, I think that's why Planetary's still on my shelf, is because I really like that story, and even though it was written by a person that I don't really like anymore, like it's still a
Yeah.
good story. So
I mean, another one that bothers me, and I am a super fan of his works, and it's nowhere near, it's not anything comparable to Warren Ellis's skeeviness, but Brandon Sanderson is a member of the Mormon Church, and as a Mormon, he gives 10% of his income to the Mormon Church.
That's a lot of money, man.
It is, and it is his money, and he can do with it whatever he wants. But I don't agree with Mormon Church on a few things, but I love Brandon Sanderson's works. I have bought all of his books. I've supported his latest Kickstarter. I got second of 4 books that he's sending out. So but like somewhere inside of me, it sort of bugs me that, well, some of that money is going to an entity that is working against people that should have freedoms that they don't think they should. Like, I don't know what to do.
By the same token, though, if he's a member of the Mormon Church, and I assume he probably grew up in it, I don't know how many people like transfer to it. Like, it's probably shaped who he is. And would you like him as much if he hadn't grown up in the Mormon Church? Like, it's hard to piece these things apart.
Sure.
I think I'd rather have the Mormon Church get money than like Tyson or some giant corporation.
I mean, like, sure.
The choices are paralyzing. Every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to a hardware store, like it's everywhere. It's hard to. You just gotta draw your own personal line, and it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, like, the other thing for Sanderson too is that I think his personal morals do not exactly even align with his church.
No, he said that he wants to change. He wants to change the church from the inside, which is a great goal, and I'm glad that he feels that way and thinks that he can sway his community to change their minds on stuff. But until that change is made in like the higher up controlling powers of the church, they're still advocating against, like, I don't know. Yeah, and yeah, you can't, like, it'll drive you crazy, like Kat says, if you start to really analyze everything, because who knows? That person that drew that beautiful landscape kicked a dog last week. Who knows?
I mean, yeah, do we also have to account for the possibility that people can be shitty and can potentially change also? Like, I know Brandon Sanderson's beliefs when he started writing are not the same beliefs that he has now from, like, a couple of the articles I've read. And, like, I know Warren Ellis wrote an apology, like, note and is trying to, like...
It was not accepted. It was not enough, according to the website that I was looking at.
Yeah, I remember that also, and I haven't kept up with that since to keep track of any new developments. And maybe
I don't know. I just looked at it before we recorded to see what the deal was there. I didn't even know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I have no idea if there's like any actual meaningful change on that front or not, and I don't think it matters a ton to the rest of the discussion we just had, but I think it's worth acknowledging that, like, people can also change to not be shitty, hopefully.
Yeah, I think the main power here is future facing. Like, if someone's continuing to be shitty, boycott their stuff. If they've actually made some meaningful changes in their lives and they seem like they're upstanding citizens or whatever, then encourage that. But like, what's in the past is done. And it just might be personally tainted for you.
Sure.
Can I seg here for a minute? So,
seg away.
With Nextwave, everyone's mean to each other basically all the time, which I think was funnier to me 10 years ago. There's like Steven Universe and stuff like that have come out, and it's like, oh my god, I didn't even know this level of wholesome was possible.
I think we're moseying towards Pat's question, actually, so we may want to just dive right in.
My thing.
She's segging. She's mid-seg.
Okay. You cut off my seg.
I'm sorry. Keep segging. Keep segging away.
So everyone's mean to each other all the time, and it kind of grated on me a little bit because the constant snotty comments, like, yeah, they were kind of funny, but they started to get old. But there's one thing I've seen, and it's, I think, only ever one thing I've seen that pulls off horrible people being horrible to each other, and that is Arrested Development, the original 3 seasons. And they do it spectacularly well, and I'm wondering what is missing in this formula that this doesn't quite get there.
it's the fact that people have to have redeeming moments every once in a while. I was actually just talking about this
Ah,
yesterday at our Nerd Fest day with our friend Simon, who's on the podcast every once in a while, because we were talking about how the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development hold up, and the fourth season is not good. And
we
part
don't
of
talk
it
about
is,
that.
well, I mean, part of it is that they had to film it with everyone separated so people couldn't even be in the same scene. Like, you definitely feel it. But the other part is that, like, in every, I think maybe because it was on network television at the time, I don't know exactly, but like in every episode of Arrested Development, at least Michael Bluth, and usually the other characters too, like, they're shitty and they're kind of shitty to each other, and like it's bad and there's conflict, but like there's redeeming moments where you recognize that they're people and they are actually trying, like here and there at least, like they are trying.
Yeah, I
And
guess Michael Bluth is the straight man, and in this, maybe Monica Rambeau would come the closest.
yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so, for sure. So like there's not really redeeming moments in here. There's not really like, oh, you recognize that this person is actually a good person because everyone's just snarky all the time.
Hmm.
I think is where it breaks. Like there's no, oh, George Michael, I'll try to be better next time. Or like, oh, Dad, we just had a misunderstanding. It's okay. It's just like we're coworkers and we kind of like each other, but really we're just mean to each other.
Well, I'll say, like, I read a little bit of an interview by Warren Ellis, and he said that was by design. Like, there's no character development, and he didn't want there to be. It just goes hard, and then
I
that's
mean,
just
there's
what it
the
is.
little like snippet at the end of the Mindless Ones adventure where they like it's a caption. It's like one character even had something approaching a character moment. You could be sure as shit that won't happen again, right? Like, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be like punchy, explodey action comics, like zany sci-fi, over-the-top concept adventures, right? Like, it's not supposed to be. I mean, it's breaking a lot of superhero comic rules. And actually, I've written about this a decent amount on the blog. Like, part of why I like superhero universes and like stuff like the Justice League is that yes, they go and they fight crime and they stop like they have good like big adventures, but like they're friends at the end of the day. Like they have chili cookouts, they have Thanksgiving dinners where the Justice League meets up with the Justice Society and they're like friends. And like Mr. Terrific's playing chess against 3 Justice League members at once and beating them all. Like stuff like that where they're actually friendly towards each other. And this comic is not that. This is the anti that almost.
I don't really want to see them play chess with each other.
I mean, I know you don't, but I
That's why I
do.
picked this one. All right. So now that we've had my seg, we can veer it on towards what you were gonna say.
No, I was just saying we've kind of been dancing around the question of like, has the book held up, which is why you wanted to come to it in the first place. And Pat kind of had the same question, right, Pat?
Yeah. I will rephrase what you just said by saying, has the
Uh,
comedy of Nextwave held up for you guys? For
eh,
me, it's been, I want to say 6 years, maybe more since I've read this.
oh,
And yeah, it didn't tickle me quite as much this time around, probably because of, in the light of Warren Ellis's indiscretions, I gave a new flavor to some of the jokes, but it's a lot more immature than I remember,
Yeah,
which is fine.
when Kat
like
describes
think
it as
about
like the frat boy humor comic, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a
yeah,
great
like what
description
else
of
was
it.
coming out in 2007? It was like Wedding Crashers, maybe The 40-Year-Old Virgin,
Sure.
thing with Will Ferrell where he's Frank the Tank. The I don't remember what that's called. With You're
Can
my
I
boy,
tell
Blue.
you? Can I tell you what I went for first in my brain? And I typed it in and I was like, oh, okay, yep, that makes sense. Superbad came out in 2007.
Yeah.
Superman? Is that a
Superbad.
oh, super. Yes! This is exactly. There was just like this whole chain of movies that was like, are you a 23-year-old man? You'll love this. And this one is like
It's got
one of
ladies
those. And
and
it was just
references.
like, it was the zeitgeist right then. So you're like, haha, yeah, this is just like everything else. And now with maybe more of a frame of reference, you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, not so much. And I mean, I think again, we were kind of talking about this earlier, like the fact that the culture itself, I feel like, has gotten so good at like exposing people for being shitty means that when characters are shitty in media, I kind of just don't have time for it. I'm much more in for the like the Steven Universe or My Love Story wholesomeness at this point than I'm in for oh, we're all just dicks to each other. Because, like, there are enough dicks in real life. I don't need to read about this in fiction.
Sure. Yeah. I don't like. I still enjoy the Fing Fang Foom stuff, but I certainly didn't remember like the introduction about mommy was a slut lizard that did the bad thing with suggestively
Yeah,
shaped
and I was
pipes of
reading that
nuclear
today, and I was
waste.
Not
like,
bad for Fin Fang Foom.
Just
it
like,
doesn't need to
okay,
say
that was
slut
just
in it. It could just be a bad
unnecessary.
lizard. Like, come
Yeah,
on, man.
just
We're being denigrating for no reason here.
being
Like,
really edgy. Like I don't really care about the honor of Fing Fang Food's mother, but still, like the joke about him shoving people in his pants because he's super horny and doesn't have any genitals, that's still funny.
no, it's not
Didn't need to
actually,
go.
though. It's not funny. Fin Fang Foom's an incel, man.
Yeah, it's funny.
Not funny
I
anymore,
still think it's
actually.
funny.
He doesn't have the hat.
He's got purple underpants instead. The Fin Fang Foom stuff was actually like very heartbreaking this time in a way that because like I guess I'm an easy marker, like a softie now, but like
I just
I
don't
don't
like
think
it
I
when
cared
people
as
are mean
much.
to animals.
I mean,
Yeah,
when
I
his
mean,
heart's breaking, that's pretty sad.
when his heart is
Aw.
literally outside his body because he threw it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no good. It's not good anymore. I don't
I
know.
mean, and like the character of Dirk Anger, I thought was funnier towards the beginning than towards the end. Towards the end, they really just like have him go absolutely insane.
Why was he a zombie? Like he's only in like half a
'Cause of
scene. He's in
Zombie
1.5
Marvel.
panels.
No,
Marvel loves their zombie.
Is
I
that
wonder
the
if
only
that
reason?
I wonder if that was actually when Marvel Zombies came out. Hang on.
I would
Look.
imagine. Like, why else would he come back
Hey,
as a
good news.
zombie?
Marvel Zombies wrapped up in April of 2006. So they probably just put a zombie in it, Cat, because there was a Marvel Zombies miniseries that was very popular at the time.
But like, just the idea of Dirk Anger being a stand-in for Nick Fury was pretty funny, and like the flying giant submarine instead of a flying what is it
The
called?
helicarrier,
Yeah,
yeah.
just like funny.
Yeah, all the Shield lampooning stuff still holds up. And like most of the comic lampooning stuff still holds up too for me of like the Ultimates parody that we talked about before and like
Yeah.
even like the normal, hey, you're supposed to be like a superhero and you're not. Like it kind of holds up. I also kind of hate it. It depends on the specific joke.
Sure. I liked when Machine Man was getting told he sort of sucks by the Eternals.
The Celestials, yeah.
Sorry, the Celestials.
No worries.
Just made me laugh. And I didn't realize that was actually a reference to who's the robot in Marvel?
The robot
Matthew.
in Marvel?
Marvin.
Vision?
Vision, yeah.
Oh.
It's a reference to a scene in Vision where Vision's like,
kind of
"Don't
shit.
look at me, a robot crying or something
Oh,
like that. It's actually
Oh.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
Lord.
right. Yeah. You believe a robot can try.
a robot can cry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
See, that's what I mean. You're a bitch. This is exactly the kind of shit I'm talking about, Eric. That's so funny.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, like the stuff that holds up is the over-the-top wacky stuff. In addition to some of the parody stuff we were talking about, like when Dirk Anger in issue 1 is like, connect me to the overnamed communication device, and then it's just a giant telephone that gets plugged into his head or whatever. It's like, oh, that's so good. Like all those like Dirk Anger prop bits, like when he's doing Russian roulette with the giant gun that's like got the barrel that comes around and points at him. Like,
what is another reference? I guess Nick Fury had a giant gun.
I mean, that sounds correct to me. Honestly, that sounds like a thing Jack Kirby might draw.
Now I'm like, because I don't get most of these references because I haven't been reading comics for the last 20 years, which is, I think, what you need to have as a frame of reference for some of them. But like,
no, some of these are older than that, honestly.
I thought it was just dipping into absurdism in ways that I liked, like why Dirk Anger was a zombie. I guess that was a thing, but I was just like, oh, he's just a zombie, okay. Or like, why reveal the MODOK baby thing just for it to get shot by a dinosaur? Like, what?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, the absurdism, like the over the top
good.
wacky stuff, is the stuff that still really holds up and made me laugh the most on the reread for sure.
Yeah, and I like very rarely in comics that I've seen anyway, is the bad guy what it should be, which is a corporation, just like the real world's villains.
That's actually why I really like that the Beyond Corporation still shows up in comics, actually, because you just get to be like, oh, it's this evil corporation, and like heroes get to fight them, and it's like there's no qualms here, baby. Just like heroes versus evil corporations. That's what superhero comics should be.
Exactly. Yeah, they should be like lawyers and stuff. Oh, and those final fight panels when they're clearing out the 51st state. Like, oh my God, those were so fun. It was just all these random splash pages of weird animals and stuff.
Yeah,
Probably a
that's
lot of
one.
in-jokes in there too, but that was awesome.
That's one where I'm like, oh, Stuart Immonen should like is getting the unfair end of the stick because this comic is attributed to Warren Ellis because
Did
like
Stuart Immonen also do all the different breakout arts and when they're in like the parallel universes and they each have their own little mini thing with different art styles?
yeah, I believe so because there's no
Wow.
other artist credited and like most of those are actually like after another artist's style, I believe too, which I can't name all of them, but I know the Elsa Bloodstone one is like Hellboy Mike Mignola style art. So
Yeah.
Oh man, seeing that original panel that's basically like remade shot for shot, that's really funny. See, this is the shit I'm talking about.
I think I had the comic where the Vision does the even an android can cry bit actually, but I think I got rid of that one when we were moving.
God, how tedious.
It's a little bit, but I mean it's also like it's all soap opera, baby. Like my grandma loved soap operas, my mom loves soap operas. I love soap operas that they just all dress in primary colors and punch each other too in mine. So genetics, heck of a thing.
Oh God, this is all from a review from Goodreads, and someone's pulled some really good images. The part where he's a cop, Aaron, and they start
Oh yeah.
kicking him.
That bit actually I think is not only holds up, I think it might be better than
It got
was when
better.
was-
It got better.
Yeah. Where they just are like, oh, he's a cop, kick him.
What are you doing? This guy's a cop.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, I guess it's like as far as like a firm verdict on has the comedy held up or not, I think enough of it, yes, that I still consider the comic good. But like a lot of the frat boy snarky people are being mean to each other stuff, I've just got no time for anymore. And I think it does actually detract from the book, even separating it from the fact that then reminds me about the fact that Warren Ellis is a creep in a lot of situations. Because there's you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. There's literally no good male character in this comic. All of them are shitheads.
Hey, there's no
Yes,
good female characters either. They're just all shitheads. That's
I
what they
mean
are
that's.
doing.
I think that the females are less shitty though. Like
That is sexist. No, they're not.
I don't
That is
know, man.
bullshit.
I don't like no none of
Elsa
the
Bloodstone is a real big asshole.
yeah, but like no one's like none of them are trying to. I don't
Oh,
know. None of
my
them are.
dude, you are
Whatever.
seeing what you want to see there, I
I
I mean, the
think.
guess
closest is
I'll just
Monica
concede that
Rambeau,
one. I
but
guess.
she sort of gives up halfway through.
I mean,
So-
Monica does fry a dog with her microwave powers when she's a child.
Dude, it was one of those yappy little dogs that doesn't shut the hell up. I understand.
Which I don't think
I
she had
understand.
powers when she was a child, but whatever, it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Continuity be damned.
I just want to say, I think it was canceled, but it was a self-contained story, and I appreciate that. That's what I gravitate to. Like, if this was, I don't know, a volume collection, nah. But the fact that it's one, and it's like, yeah, that's not much of a commitment. I'm about that.
I mean, the only reason it's only one is because they got canceled. Cat, it would have
No,
gone
I
on.
don't care. You know what? A lot of things have gotten canceled, and like maybe that's for the best. Like Firefly, it's got its movie, and it never got bad.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the conceit of this too, where like if it had kept going forever, like it's 2-issue stories, so like it's never gonna be a weird decompressed 6-part story. It's like you start it, you stop it. That's the story. I like that a lot. Like you
And there's
jump
only
in, you
so
jump
far
out.
you can go when you're like, I refuse to have character development.
There is that too, right? But like I mean, the series could have continued with that same conceit for a long time at the like in the same vein, right? Like basically you just have to find interesting problems to put them in front of them and then put them in front of it. And as much as it's like there's no character development, there's actually like a solid amount of character like beats in the story. They're just not really like the main focus.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm on the same page as you guys. It still has its funny moments. It's just not doesn't strike the same chord that it used to. I don't know if I would recommend this to people anymore. I would have definitely before.
Yeah, I mean, I have I have recommended it to people. I think I recommended it to you, Pat. So.
You did. Look what you've done. What have you
My
wrought?
fault. But yeah, I guess Kat, you were talking about at the start, like part of the reason we're even reading this book is to see if it held up because you're re-examining so many things you've read or watched or listened to in the past. So what's your
Some
verdict?
things. Ish. Like, if I don't read it for another 10 or 20 or 30 or ever years, that would be fine too. Do I regret having read it? No.
No, I mean, I laughed at a lot of the funny bits still. So
It wasn't
I
as
am
funny to
glad we
me as
read
it was
it.
the first time. But
Yes,
so I would give it like a 3 out of 10 of holding up. I must have just been really immature the first time I read it. I don't know.
that doesn't sound like you.
No, it sounds like me.
So I guess that can jump us into my question, which is a slightly lighter one, and probably won't take as much time to discuss because I figured we'd have a big ball of discussion in those first two questions. But the discussion we had for the first two questions does influence my answer for this one, which is, which Nextwave member is your favorite and why? My member is predictable. Do you guys want to guess who it is?
Monica Rambo.
Yeah,
I was gonna
it's
say
not.
Machine Man, but is it
Oh,
Monica?
really?
What?
No, it's Monica. Yeah.
It wasn't going to be a guy. He's decided the women are better somehow. And I
Oh, that's
guess
right.
I
the
still
most
think they are.
upstanding moral character
I
is
don't have the book in
Monica.
front of me to prove my point, but I do want to say that the women are slightly less shitty. All
They
shitty.
aren't.
Okay, that's fine. I'll concede the point. But yeah, Monica, I think, is probably like the most morally upright of them, although her morals also just like fluctuate based on whether she thinks the thing is human or not, so that's not great. Like
Yep.
killing, they're broccoli, it's fine. Killing, yeah, they shot me, so I'm gonna kill them, so it's okay. Like, not great, but like I think the fact that she's the most like straightforward. I think the least shitty overall of the bunch to like because she's a professional, she like wants to work together well in a team, so she's like the least shitty to the rest of the group. So I think that's probably why Monica is my favorite. Plus, I just like my leader types, your Nightwings, your Leonardos, etc.'s,
Your Cyclopses.
your
Boo.
Cyclopses, yeah,
Boo.
yeah. So that's my take.
I think mine is probably Elsa, also Bloodstone.
That was my guess.
Called it.
I was like 100% I could guess who Pat's is, and I couldn't 100% guess who Cat's was.
I mean, why did you guess that?
You
How'd you
like
know?
He's your
after
type,
having
man.
done a few like role play games, you do like the sassy lady in charge characters.
She kicks butt and she knows it. It's great. Okay.
Yeah, the sassy tough fighter lady. Yeah, that's the Patrick Fitzgerald flex special when you're role playing.
Fine, fine. You know me so well.
The sassy take no nonsense.
Yeah, I was kind of torn between Elsa for my favorite and Aaron. Yeah, Tabby was okay. Monica's okay. The captain, eh,
The
meh.
captain's just the worst, right?
He's just,
If we
he's
all
not the worst. He's just kind of like gross.
Yeah.
I don't really like potty humor sorts of things. And he's just like this gross farty guy that punches aliens. I'm like, nah, he's
Yeah,
okay. I don't
he did
dislike any
something
of
with
them.
that toilet cleaning brush to Dormammu's brother or whatever that
Yeah,
I don't want to know
no.
about.
Ew.
Did you guys catch that in the first issue of that story? They call that dimension that guy comes from the dank
The
dimension.
dank dimension?
And in the
No.
next issue, they call it the dim dimension. And I think the Marvel editors, like multiple times in this series, like caught wind of what was going on. And we're like, you can't do that, guys. You can't do that.
It's a different dimension. It's fine.
All right. Well, I think that actually brings us to the end of our discussion and to the recommendations section.
Bum, bum, bum.
So, what would you guys recommend to someone who read this and liked it?
After
Go
having
check out the
discussed whether or not
Just
you
say-
should like this.
Maybe
the Suicide
something by
Girls.
someone who hasn't been canceled yet. I don't know. It's up to you. Again, we had that discussion.
Kat, you got something? Otherwise I can jump in.
I can't really think of comic books with my limited
I thought this had
expertise of comic books.
similar flavors to Atomic Robo.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
The funny writing in the. I would say the thing that it makes me think of is like go check out Fratboy humor dude flicks from like 2003 through 2010. Like old school is the thing I was thinking of with Will Ferrell. That this one has old school vibes. Or Super Bad or 40-Year-Old Virgin. Those are kind of
Sure.
on the same level, I think.
I wonder how many of those still hold up also.
Not many.
In the
I
I
same
tried
wouldn't
to
way.
rewatch the 40-Year-Old Virgin. Nah. I like that it catapulted Steve Carell to stardom, but I'm good on it.
I think I tried to watch Superbad as an adult once, and
Yeah,
it didn't go
I was
great.
there. We tried to watch Superbad too, and it was okay. Oh, I guess that means old school won't hold up. I remember liking that one.
I think I've
Damn
only seen that once, and I don't remember much about it, so I can't say on that one.
it. Well, Will Ferrell's in it. It might still be good.
Yeah. Pat,
So
do you
yeah.
want to go?
Yeah, so my pick is an Image comic series. It's by Hickman and Batara. It's called The Manhattan Projects. It's similar in its wackiness and irreverent like humor. It's more serious. It's how would you describe this, Matt? You've read it, right? Manhattan
Haven't actually,
Projects.
no. That's
You haven't
One of the
really.
Hickman books I haven't read.
It's interesting. It's an alternate history where the Manhattan Project's like it's uncontrolled science. Like government has just given away everything to science and it's run amok. And it's basically just following what that leads to. Like I think one of the primary characters is Albert Einstein, and I don't know. It's fun. It's been a while
So
since
it's
I've read it.
like it's the real world, except it's science instead of tech.
Yeah, sort of. It's been a while since I've read it, but it's a wacky ride, and the art is interesting. It reminds me a little bit of Frank Quitely's art, where it's got like super detail in all the characters. I don't know.
Did it end? Did it finish?
That I don't know. I have the first 3 volumes. I can't tell you for sure if it has an ending.
I feel like part of the reason I didn't jump on that one is I'm not sure it actually has an ending or not, but we might. I don't know. You find out, reader. You'll figure it out. Listener, God.
Reader, I married him.
Reader, I married her.
Yeah,
My
Oppenheimer, and so it's good.
my recommendation is also like a wild comic book. It's not as funny, but it is very over the top, and it kind of just asks you to go with it. And like, it's got sort of the same absurdist vein in a way of just like bigger and bigger and bigger things happen, and it kind of just asks you to come along for the ride. And it's Transformers versus G.I. Joe, which I don't really have an investment in either of those properties.
Interesting.
Like, so you can take that for what you will, but like I really loved that comic book because it's just like it goes so hard. The conceit is that the Transformers show up on Earth and it's an Earth where G.I. Joe exists. So like G.I. Joe and the Autobots eventually like end up teaming up to fight the Decepticons. And as part of that, really weird shit happens. And just like I think eventually Earth becomes a Transformer.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's as hard as it goes, essentially. So that's a good one. It's worth picking up if you like the bits of this that are over the top nonsense. All right, guys. Well, I think we did have a good discussion about this comic book that I wasn't sure I wanted to read.
Do you
And I think
regret having read it?
no, I don't actually. I'm actually really glad we read it. I'm glad you picked it because, like,
It was still
hey,
fun, right?
yeah, it was still fun, and I think we had a really good conversation about it. And it's a conversation that like you and I have been having like on and off. I think since that pandemic summer where so many shitty people were outed, and it was good to have it like in a well-defined space and kind of draw some actual conclusions, like having the whole conversation at once. And it was also nice to have Pat tell us what he thought at the same time. So it wasn't just the same discussion we've been having. So that was nice. But yeah, and the comic itself still get like Stuart Eminem's art like still really good. Like there's that scene where I think it's Elsa knocks the engine out of a car and Stuart Eminem draws like every single part of a car engine semi-accurately. Like So good. Like, I think they're doing a webcomic called Grass of Parnassus right now, him and his wife, and you should probably go check that out if you like this too, I guess. A bonus recommendation. But if you want to get in touch with Pat or myself, as a result of the discussion of this podcast, you can email us at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com. You can also find more comics-related goodness, including blog posts and other such things, at mattreadscomics.com, where every once in a while, Kat does a guest post if she's willing to grace us with her presence. They're always very good. Kat, do you have anywhere on the internet that you want people to find you at this point, or have you joined the rest of us in shutting the online life?
I don't really have anything going on. Maybe someday. No.
Right. Well, thank you for coming back on the podcast. I always appreciate when you humor me and bring a book and an excellent discussion to the podcast.
Well, thank you.